Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. First, thanks sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Topps, Upper Deck, and Panini. I've titled this episode Trumpisms. My wife had the TV on most of Monday, Inauguration Day, also MLK Day, and Trump was there all day, all night, it seemed like. Lots of energy, lots of his favorite sayings kept coming up, his themes. And I was just wondering, can I make a podcast episode out of some of the things he's trying to do and has 4 years to do that might impact us? He wants to control immigration, and I want to keep out the bad guys. I don't want to keep out the good guys, but I want to not have an open border. We'll see how that plays out. That could have an impact on the hobby, but my guess is it's maybe not as much as we would think. He wants to acquire Greenland. I'm not sure there's any collectors in Greenland. I'm not sure there's even very many people there. The Gulf of America, again, I'm not sure that's any impact on the hobby. Taking back the Panama Canal, I'm not sure about that either, unless that impacts the import-export, which also gets into the tariffs, which I'm concerned a little bit on that. Supplies are coming from the Far East. If there's a hefty tariff on some of these things, those costs are either going to be passed on to the collectors or they're going to find a new source with less tariff, and maybe even doing it in America, which I'd like to bring back more manufacturing. Education is key, but he's going to potentially eliminate the Department of Education, the federal department. And I'll see how that plays out. I'd like to see more better teachers, and I'd like to see parents more involved, and I'd like to see not too many administrators, not too many bureaucrats. Seem to be more bureaucrats and administrators than there are teachers. I want to equip the teachers, empower the teachers, incentivize the teachers, because I just think this hobby is based on being smart, and you've got to educate the people. Some of these school districts are kind of too big to succeed, and some of these government departments are too big. They've lost touch. Now, Trump is pushing things toward a local referendum in some cases where the federal government doesn't have to decide something. The states could decide. The hobby is not the Wild West, but there's a lot of local initiative that takes place all over the country, of this country anyway. He wants to build a wall. Again, if it's keeping out the bad guys, then there's any number of measures that would keep out the bad guys. I don't want to politicize what I'm saying. I'm not sure that has a big impact. Trump always claims to be about merit, and this hobby is about merit. It's about players that are better, the players that perform. It's the reason we have all this prospecting, and it's the reason why baseball is tricky, because the prospecting in baseball is much more difficult than football. And then basketball, you can see how they did in college or how they did in Europe and have some idea. It's a smaller group of people. With baseball, you just have no idea. You're picking an 18-year-old that hit 500 in high school or in a low minor league, but you don't know if he can really hit the curveball or hit major league pitching. We've learned from Trump, he loves to negotiate from strength. That's something we could all learn. I'm not going to call him a liar as much as calling him a kind of a hyperbolizer or exaggerator. I think he's doing that to get an edge in his negotiations. So he's going to start with something that's pretty crazy. Now, the Sports Card Insight is there are people that do that trying to get a card off somebody to sell their card for more or to buy your card for less. There's exaggeration going on, and exaggeration and hyperbole are not necessarily crimes. If somebody makes a nebulous statement that's the best one I've ever seen, that's impossible to prove or disprove in most cases. If you make a factual statement, then that's another story. I don't agree with Trump's stances on debt. I think he's a little cavalier about his personal debt and corporate debt. And of course, the national debt is another issue, but I think he's going to be spending. His philosophy, I think, is that it takes money to make money. Well, that's sort of true, except that where's the money coming from? And in his case, I think his philosophy is the opposite of mine. I think he, in his business, would want to borrow as much money as he can, and I want to borrow as little as I can. I want to be more self-sufficient. For you, I would encourage you to consider my camp. You may need to borrow money for certain things, but don't get in trouble. In fact, that his detractors really get down on him for that because he's defaulted on some debt. And that's bad. But the other thing he's done is that he is not allowing himself to be defined by his detractors. And he has detractors, obviously. I read where they said that half the people love him and half the people hate him. Well, actually, slightly more than half either tolerate or love him because he got more than half of the popular vote. That wasn't true 8 years ago. He didn't win the popular vote, but he did win the electoral college. Well, but this time he's won the popular vote. So that's a bit of a mandate. He doesn't drink. I don't think he does drugs. I don't know if he does energy types of drinks, Monster or Mountain Dew or something. He's in full faculties most of the time. I think that's something we could all learn from. To me, that's exemplary. I want to have my wits about me when I go to a card show and not be tipsy. I've heard him say on the medical that I think he's not against people being uncomfortable and having difficult situations because I think he thinks it's an opportunity for you to grow in the difficulty. But I don't think he wants people dying on his watch. So I don't think he's going to want to send soldiers out to get killed. And I don't think he wants homeless people to die. I don't know how that works because he doesn't come across as a huge empathy guy. On the other hand, it seems like he's exemplary in the harmony he has, for the most part, in his family in a very amazing way. He really just lights up when he talks about winning. In our industry, in our hobby, he wants to not just win, but win big. Again, I differ because I just want to win. I don't need to win big. I can win small, but I want to win. When I meet with young men to mentor them or to visit with them, I just say, don't expect to go through life undefeated, but you're a winner. You're going to lose some, but you're going to win more than you lose. So pick yourself back up and get back in the game. He wants everything to be huge. Like I said, my goal was to get rich slow, certainly not interested in getting rich quick. To me, get rich quick is luck. Get rich slow is working. He's a compromiser, and I like that. To note the three major monotheistic religions, I don't believe he's a prophet. That would be Muhammad for my Muslim friends. I don't believe he is a or the deliverer. That would be Moses for my Jewish friends. And I do not think he is the savior for sure. For Christians, that would be Jesus. My wife was saying, the MAGA hats. And again, I have a problem because I don't think America was great for everybody in the old days, but it was great for a bunch of people. But MCGA, make collecting great again. Then the issue would be, when wasn't it great? I think collecting has always been great if you put in the work. You can't just show up and be an instant knowledgeable collector. You got to pay your dues. But collecting is great for anybody that works it. The big news, though, is that he apparently is powerful enough to lift the ban on TikTok. Now, that does impact the hobby and the way some of the people hobby. The way he's going to do that, my other podcast around the election time, I talked about, I don't like a lot of regulation. Well, this is a good example of Trump and other people posturing about TikTok for extreme situations where the compromise might be some regulation, some ownership change, or at least that would have the effect of depoliticizing the negative aspects of TikTok and allowing the fun aspects to continue, to cold turkey pull the plug on TikTok, for Trump to pardon that situation, as the case may be. A lot of people on TikTok are very happy with him. But again, that's not really a pardon. On the subject of pardons, though, there's a presidential prerogative you saw from Biden in his last days to pardon people unconditionally. And it depends on who I want to talk to. If I talk to, some people, they say, I think it's terrible, the pardons that Trump is doing. And then the next person, I think it's terrible, the pardons that Biden is doing. This is going to be in the news for a little while, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's a presidential prerogative. Can you imagine if we had vintage and modern collectors warring against each other and committing crimes? Civil war based on the definition of vintage and how far it goes back, and that vintage is better. No, modern is better. Again, don't do any behavior that even requires thinking about a pardon. We can all coexist, and I'd like to see that within the context of the hobby, not just Democrats and Republicans. I think life is a race, and Trump thinks that too, but some people have a head start. You didn't pick your parents. You were born into a family or a situation. and you have certain gifts and abilities and certain things that you're either not good at or deficiencies. But even though there's a race and some people have a head start, there's different finish lines. I think you have an individual finish line and you have an individual type of race. Run your own race. And that doesn't mean you aspire to be president, but it means you want to be successful and you want to encourage your friends. Like I did the episode about the wingmen. Help your friend. He's big on America first, and that is criticized by some. But I will note in this industry, the major players all have some international aspect. It's Panini America, PSA, Collectors is opening offices, Fanatics is global, Heritage, certainly bidders from everywhere, and offices around the world. These are billion-dollar companies, but their headquarters is in America. We're not looking for everything to be only America, but America first is what I'd like to see Trump talk about. The other thing that corporations do sometimes, they very quickly announce 100 changes, which he's done, executive orders and all that. Then everybody's, oh my goodness, there's 100 things he's doing, but no one can handle 100 things in their mind. So they can only think the 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 that are most egregious, and they focus on those. Then the other ones kind of slip by. It's like his cabinet nominees. They're not all of equal stature, but people are going to focus on the worst ones in their mind and criticize. When I do dollar boxes, I always try to buy a bunch of cards. It's not a big secret. I'm not cheating, but if I buy a bunch of cards, it's unlikely they're going to go through. Again, they were all cards in the dollar box, didn't do anything illegal. But the more I buy, they may notice a few that look good and a few, why did he pick that one? There's something about that of not knowing what it's going to be. These executive orders, I don't really understand. I think they're going to be tested by the court system of what is an executive order. The closest thing in this industry, and this is probably one of the key sports card insights here. The closest thing to an executive order that I experienced, I was not the executive. I'm not talking about within my own company, within this industry. In 2004 and 2005, especially, there was close to an executive order from the Major League Baseball Players Association about enforcing these new rookie card rules, with the rookie card being put on the card. And that was a back and forth for really a couple of years. And I eventually succumbed to that quote unquote executive order. I will share more about that, but I'll probably save that for Victor because it's a rookie card consideration. I have some other things that I've thought about that it's probably time to say, some other things that were going on behind the curtain. Not well known. Let me leave you with a positive note. This was a quote from Trump. Again, you may hate him, but he has stated now, he's saying this is what he wants. His proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That is what we're hoping for with Biden, and we're hoping that with Obama, and we're hoping for that with Trump. I hope that happens. That's really what would be good. Not just for America, but for the whole world. The world is kind of broken, and it needs some healing, not hopefully by war, but by having peace and prosperity. At any rate, that's it for some Trumpisms. I appreciate your patience. I don't want to be political too much, but this was the big news this week. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back again in a couple days with another episode. Man in the house of